All right, so I'm just going to keep open a window for Twitch over here so I can see questions that way, since I can't see it on my main screen here. So bear with me. This is my first time doing this. So I am Daniel Fisher. I am friends with the Trolls, and I paint miniatures. And I was asked if I wanted to do a paint show. And it's mostly going to be a paint show. It's going to be 3D printing. It's going to be any tabletop crafting that you all want to know about that I can do. Mostly, I'm going to teach people how to get stuff to the table quick and easy. Because a lot of us have that box of shame, and we don't like dealing with it. And you know, I've got my box of shame up here on my shelf that's full of Reaper miniatures and from one of the Bones Kickstarters, and I've yet started. Well, I've started tackling a little bit of it. So, but we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to be painting a little bit of Fat Dragon stuff. I've got 2 Fat Dragon miniatures I'm going to paint. Then we got one I'm going to look at. I've been testing a new 3D printer that I've gotten. I run currently 4 3D printers, 1 resin printer, and 3 filament printers, and so I'm going to go over some of these models. And one of the models we're going to paint tonight is the Fat Dragon's Cube O Snot. Now, I did this one on my resin printer, and there is some support issues that I had, and it's only because I accidentally turned the supports on, because with Fat Dragon miniatures, you technically don't need any supports at all. This looks great. I actually painted it filament wise previously, and you can see how I did it here, and I've got a lot of lines here, and you know, this wasn't clear filament, so I couldn't really do a lot with it that way. This isn't clear filament either. It's an off color, and not filament but resin, so I went ahead and primed it. And then we're going to do a eyeball monster here, a ball of eyes, angry eyes. And then I just got through printing this guy. I don't know if we're going to paint him, but this is the Great Dragon, and I've been testing out a new printer on this one, so there's some errors on this print that I've had to take care of with super glue and such. But that's all me, not the actual model. So I'll hold it up here so y'all can see it this way. I'm really impressed with this. These are all Fat Dragon miniatures right here. And I talk too fast, so if I need to slow down, just let me know, guys. So, but right here, this model was $9.99 on their website, and which is really good for a dragon of this size. You know, if you have a printer, you can print these out yourself, and you can print as many as you want and put them on your table and stuff. And I do believe there's people out there that, if you don't have a printer, will print them for you for a small fee. So, and again, if y'all have any questions, just let me know. I am nervous, so just bear with me. And we're going to start out here. Now, today, I've decided that I want to use paints that come in a starter set. I do have a lot more paints than this, and I'm practicing with new type of paints too, so it's going to be like a whole new experience. I went ahead and got some Reaper paints, one of their starter sets, and I wanted to try them out because I've only beforehand had about 5 Reaper paints, and I heard that they're really good for their Bones miniatures, and since I'm going to be chucking through a lot of Bones miniatures here in the future, I'm going to try them out. And so I figured I'd go ahead and break them in tonight. Normally I use a lot of Army Painter and some Citadel paints and Vallejo paints and a little bit of watercolors, and I may bring out some of my washes, so I'll probably use some Citadel washes tonight as well. And you will notice, that is the MSP set there, Baked Sauce, and I got a couple I added to it. The colors that I added to the set are, this is an older one I have, and this is their golden brown. It's an HD color, and I may be using this tonight. This is their brown liner. I really like their liner paints. I've only got 3 of them, but they only have 3 more, and I'm going to try to get them. But if you've ever used the Citadel paints for the contrast paints, the liner paints are made to use to do pen washing with a little bit easier. You have more control over them. So with the liner paints, though, they also act like very dark versions of contrast paints, so you might want to give it a try. And if I can, a little bit later, I'll show y'all what I mean by that. So the first thing we're going to start out with is we're going to prime the eyeball monster here. And let me switch over to that image here. And if you can't see something, just let me know. And I'm going to try to keep it in frame. Now you're going to notice that there's some layering here, and that's this printer that I'm testing out. But I mean, that's your layers from 3D printing, but my eye is actually shiny like an actual eyeball. And that is because I smoothed it out. And there's lots of products that you can use to smooth a 3D print like this. But what I actually ended up using was I put super glue over it. And then with the super glue, I added a drop of accelerator, and it smoothed out the eye because I really wanted a smooth eye for this. And if you all have any other questions, I do use a product called for larger 3D prints called XTC from Smooth On. It's really expensive, but it's a epoxy resin that you can paint over large surfaces. So we'll start with this, and I'm going to prime this. I'm brush priming it today, and I'm actually using this golden brown to prime it for things that I want to do in sorts of flesh tones. I enjoy doing browns as my primer, so I'll be using a little bit of paint on this one. Yeah, the XTC does, it really fills it in, but you lose a lot of detail. What you want to do though with this, I just put a couple of drops of super glue over it, and I moved it in with a pair of tweezers, and then I hit it with the accelerator, and it just made it, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's shinier and it's more smooth than what it was. So we'll start here, and I'm actually going to start in the mouth area. Now you will notice that what a lot of people don't realize is with the Reaper paints that I have begun to notice is because they're formulated to stick to plastic, if you put them on thick enough, you don't really have to have a primer. So, which is pretty cool. And I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way for this. And I don't mean to just jump straight into painting. And I will tell you this, you always have to have what I call a banger brush. And it's a big cheap brush that you can just slop paint on with, especially if you're priming your model. And right now I'm using a shade brush from Citadel, so I can't find my normal banger brush, which has a little bit thinner. I think my kid's made off with it. My son, I've been teaching him how to paint miniatures as well. I do teach the miniature painting class at GaryCon. I'm part of the ministry that brings the board game library up there. We're called Inroads, and I like to teach people how to paint because this is how I relax in the evening. And you will notice I do have a very thick Hickish accent. So this area right here is going to be the hardest area to primer in my opinion. Let's see here, let me make sure I don't have any questions, because I can't get to all of it back in there. So I may just have to leave part of it. Let's see here. My brown lipstick. Been eating chocolate. And yes, I do talk to myself, so this should be normal for me. So let's see here. And I will go through a lot of paint primering, which is fine. I do this a lot. For 3D prints, I prefer to brush primer versus spray primer. I will for filament prints, because for some odd reason the spray paint doesn't like to go into the filament cracks very well, so it's kind of hard. Let me reload my brush here. I always like to keep it wet. Ultra Magnus, yeah, because what I normally end up doing, now these are designed to stick to plastic. This is the Reaper HD paints. HD paints, I think, have been renamed to Bones paints, and they're designed to stick to plastic. But yeah, so I clear coat everything when I'm done, and so that actually helps. I've actually got a few other things I use the primer with. If I'm doing terrain, which I love Fat Dragon terrain, I usually use, Craft Smart acrylics. It works fine for me. For spray paint, or primer, spray primer that I use when I do use primer, Walmart has a $3 can of gray primer, which is this stuff here, and it works fairly well, but I ran out. Hey, it's Norse Foundry. Hey, what's up, Scott? And also, let me see what else I got in here. I do sometimes, and I may try it a little bit later if I can find it. Yes, I have a miss. I use gesso paint sometimes to prime with, and the reason for it, I like using that on smaller miniatures, and I'll show you one here if I can get to it without knocking everything over. So I prefer using gesso for miniatures like this because it actually shrinks to the miniature, so it doesn't hide the detail very well. Very well. It doesn't hide the detail, and it's very flat, and you can paint on it. And you also have a white gesso that you can get, and you can mix them together to get a gray as well. Scott, yeah, I know. The gesso that I use, I actually got it at Michael's, and I'm big on using their dang coupon, their 40% off coupon. It was kind of pricey after the coupon. It was probably about $3 for the bottle, and it was a squeeze bottle, and it's around here somewhere. My desk is kind of messy. And normally I do paint fantasy stuff, but I like painting 40K as well, and Blood Bowl. Let's see here. Now we're preparing next year at GaryCon to have some sort of tiered paint contest and different types of painting classes. Normally the painting class is geared towards beginners, and so we're going to push it we're going to have beginners classes as well, but we're going to try to do some more advanced stuff and talk about advanced techniques. And I'm going to be working a little bit with Alyssa Fadden on that. I do enjoy painting, and I feel like I'm a pretty good painter, but she kind of blows me out of the water. So, and you'll notice that I like to stick stuff in my mouth as well. And I'm always going to forget that I'm on camera too. So, let's see here. Yeah, so as far as like a primer that melts the plastic, I will tell you the paints that I have come across that don't melt plastic, and I'm just going to bang this out real quick because I'm just primering right now. So the key is to get it on a little, to cover everything but to thin it out. The only thing on a 3D print that you're really going to have to worry about brush strokes is where I thin that out over the eye. You'll see the brush strokes there. But as far as primers go, if you want to use flat spray paint, that works great. The paint that I would recommend, Walmart's also got two spray paints for $1, a black and a white, that are flat. They work really well, but there's not a lot in the can, so you're kind of getting what you pay for. The primers I do not recommend are Krylon. I cannot stand Krylon primers because what ends up happening is they have a tendency to sputter and spit on your miniature. And you've got to learn to keep the nozzle clean. If you don't keep a nozzle clean, it'll be even worse and it'll get clogged up. And I don't want to spend $4 on can spray paint that's going to dry up sometimes because I forget to clean the nozzle. But usually, those cheaper primers are good. One of my friends, Luke, over at Luke's APS, he always made the point saying that cheap automotive primer is better than most miniature primers because of the fact that it's designed for cars, and you really think people are going to put crap on their cars like that. But I mean, I've seen some pretty bad primer jobs on cars because I am from the South, and most cars are mostly primer and held together by duct tape. Let's see here. This is the only bad part about priming with paint, and one of the reasons why I'm using this as well is because this paint is almost gone, and I need to order some more for this color. Actually, what did I order this one for? I know exactly what I ordered this color for. It was actually for a friend's. What game is that? It's not Blood Bowl. It's the one. It's kind of like soccer. I can't remember the name of it. Drew, it was your team I ordered this color for. It's Drew over at North Foundry, and I can't remember exactly what it was. That stinking game. I can't remember it. And ask questions, people. I'm not the most entertaining person in the world. I bore my children to death. So, the only way I can keep you entertained is if I talk. And this is just primering, so I am being sloppy. Damn it, I thought I'd get through it a little bit quicker. This took 5 hours to print. The dragon that I just showed you took 3 days. I used to do prints to where I could. I used to sell 3D prints for people would do print jobs for me. I'd do them for them, and I'd charge $1 an hour. And looking at that miniature for the dragon. Like this, I could possibly get away with charging $5 if this turned out great. The dragon, I could not charge $70 to print that because they are cheaper ones, so I'd have to lower my price. And it was always by the time, so I figured it by the time. That's normally in the case bin what 3D print people have charged is about $1 to $2 an hour. But if I decide to start selling the Fat Dragon miniatures like this, because I am signed up for their authorized program, and I'm not trying to sell you guys anything, but I'm always looking for side income. But I'm not going to charge $1 an hour for a miniature like that. I'd probably have to just set the price. Like I've done print jobs that have lasted a continuous prints for over a week, and I can't charge those prices for that. Let's see here. Do you have any tips for painting human faces, eyes, mouth, like Reaper flesh tones, because they have great sets? I have not yet figured out the best way to do eyes or color for lips. Yes, I do, Scott. So the triads, you're talking about the Reaper triads. So Reaper triads are great because you get a dark, a mid, and a light tone. So the way you want to do this, and I got a cheater way, and I've got the way you're supposed to do it. And I'm going to teach you the cheater way. So I do have, sorry guys, that was my ring. So I think I'm good for the miniature. Hold on, let me get this right here. Now, so, and what he's talking about, let me see. Let me pull up a miniature real quick. Okay, so I'm building an Eldar army, and yeah, you like my Iron Man colors here. So, if you notice anything here about the face of the miniature, you've got your lows and your highs, and you're going to have shadows on the miniature as well, on the face. So, there's going to be 3 levels to this, and what I recommend doing is if you want to make it look old school, and old school was before we had washes. So the old school way to do it would be to paint your darks, then paint your mids, and then paint your highs. That's great. It works awesome. The cheater way is paint the whole face, your mid-tone, right? And then what you'll do is you'll dab a little bit of white in the eye sockets, a little bit of white in the eye socket on the other side. Take your finest brush, drag it straight down the middle with black, just enough to put a line right through the white. Okay? And if I had a piece of paper, I would show you. But after that, you go back with that mid-tone and just trace around the eye socket. You trace around it to where you're just leaving the white of the eye and the iris. So you've got your mids on there. Then the cheater method is to wash it. And when you wash it, that will fall into the recesses. Then to make it look old school is you would take your dark tones and you would color in where the shading went to. So, and then after you do that, then you can come back in and hit the cheekbones and the chin and the bridge of the nose and the brow with your light tone. That's the cheater method. If you want to use the old school method, is you just put the dark tone down, you figure out your mid range, which then you can just take and do. I'll show you on my face here. So you paint the entire face dark. Then you come back in and like this area here would be dark, this area here would be dark, your cheeks would be dark, your eye sockets would be dark, and then you come in and paint everything else with your mid-tone. And then you can do your eyes and then clean up around the eyes with the mid-tone. And then you come in and do your, right across here, you would do your light, you do your light right here, and now with the lips. Now, a good way that I found with the lips is I take my finest brush, and see, since these are flesh tone anyway, but they just have a little bit of pink to them, you can take a red wash and just put it in that line for your lips, and it would stain that area right in there with that red, and it still has the flesh showing through, but it stained it pink, so it would show it up. And I will actually do a face on our next. I will find a miniature with a good face that I need to paint, and we will do that. Something clear. Normally when I do heads for 40K, I actually do the head on a pen and I hold it like this, and I'm holding the pen and I'm painting the head, then I do all that work and then I glue it down. So I'm going to let this dry now, and then we're going to switch over to the cube here. And I'm not going to worry about the base on this right now because it's not going to be the right color, and yes, the paint is kind of thick on this. And I've got lots of paint holders, and I have technically 3 different paint holders, and the one I'm playing with today, this is a 3D printed one from Fat Dragon. So the premise behind this one is these come off right here, and you've got smaller ones you can swap out for it. So, and I'm just doing this because I don't have a paint holder with a base big enough for this outside of this one. And I do, this one's from Game Envy. Sorry about the mess there. This one's from Game Envy right here, this one. And I like this one too because it's very contoured. I have arthritis in this hand, so contoured helps me out a lot. Also, they have an adapter. These are pretty much soda bottles that screw on, soda bottle lids, and they actually have an adapter that this will fit to a tripod. And I've got a friend who's got Parkinson's, and he's getting ready to, he paints, but he's trying to keep painting with Parkinson's. It comes and goes with him. So hopefully we'll be trying this out with him, using this on a stand soon when I get a chance to go see him. And then I've got a Citadel handle as well. Let me check questions real quick. No, I do not drink this water. It is nasty. see here. Awesome, thank you. That was close to figuring that out, but you see me. Okay, all right. Sorry, I don't mean to be reading all the questions, guys, but yeah. So this gelatinous cube, what color do you think I should paint it? This one I did in green. If y'all want to recommend a color, I've got green. I've got some purple. If you want to try some purple, anything y'all want to do before I start painting it? If not, it's gonna get painted green. Anyone? Anyone? Let me get a drink of the water that isn't nasty. And I'm sorry if I keep bumping the camera. Alright, I guess I'm gonna paint it green. So this is Reaper's Pale Saffron, which is their yellow. Okay, purple. Alright, bake sauce. Thanks, man. Alright, so we've got Twilight Purple. So before I paint that purple, I'm going to come in here with white. So I pre-shake all these. I use a reciprocating saw with an attachment on it that will shake 4 paint bottles at once, and this one is clogged. Alright, here is my handy dandy get rid of the clog tool. This one's stuck in there pretty good. Alright. Yes. Oh, that was nasty. Yes, that is a D20. That's what you do with plastic D20s. Alright, so I'm going to need some blue white. And since we are using purple, and yes, the this wet palette is the Army Painter wet palette. I love wet palettes, but this one's pretty cool. I can pack it up and take it with me. So I'm just going to get a little purple right there for right now. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is all these little bubbles I'm going to paint white. Yes, I'm using my big fat brush for this. I'm going to get quiet. So my thing is trying to get miniatures to the table as quickly as possible, but make them look good. If I spend too much time on a miniature, I'll start worrying about it, and I'll start second guessing myself, and I'll mess it up. Okay. It's going on pretty good for a white. So let's see here. And in the future, if you all request to do certain paint, not styles, but like certain miniatures, I could see about getting those miniatures to paint it. Or if you want me to touch on tips and stuff, and I will probably eventually have a few guests on as well, guest painters. I'm quick. What do you mean I'm quick? Ultra Magnus. And Ultra Magnus was one of my favorite Transformers, and he was the biggest Transformer I had as a kid. I had the Gen 1 of him, where he had a white Optimus Prime inside of him. And he was my favorite from the cartoon, because it was the first cartoon I ever saw as a kid that cussed. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever, and my mom hated it. She's like, why did they have to cuss? I was, I think, 8 when that movie came out. Well, yeah, a little bit. I really wish my chat window was in front of me, but I've got, actually, let's move it. Let's move it over here so I can just look straight up, but I'm trying to keep everything in view. Alright. Let me move that over my head. There we go. Alright. So, let me tell you a little bit about why this is shaking. I don't have a good tripod for this because I don't know how to put a webcam on a tripod. I mean, I've got a it's got a tripod hookup, but like how to put the camera to where I can actually use it very well. And yes, this brush is probably killing a lot of people because it's so fat. And I'm putting these in like this. Get in there. So I've literally got this mounted to my desk with quick clamps. So anytime I bump my desk, the camera moves. Now, I will share with you all, you probably see how bright it is. And I have to use really good lights because I paint a lot at night. And so what I've done is on my table, I have 2 aluminum bars crisscrossed over my table, arching over it, and attached them on each underside is 2 strands of Cool White 5050 LEDs. I'll flip them off real quick so you can see how dark it is in here. And that's my squeaky chair. That's how dark it is in here, and that glows off my monitor. Lighting is important, especially if you paint at night. If you don't paint at night, you paint by a window, you should be good. Let's get out one of my other brushes. Brushes are important, and I'm an official brush slicker. So this is a Army Painter Regiment brush. Normally I paint with the Element Games Regiment, which I'm trying to get used to these right here. I use Kolinsky sable brushes for my detail work, and the reason being is I can paint eyes with this brush right there. And I will show you something about Kolinsky sable compared to cheap brushes. So this brush I'm getting ready to show you is over 2 years old, and that's the tip of it. And so the way to maintain a tip, this is real hair, so you need to wash it. And I use a bar of Johnson's baby soap, and you also always got to keep these so they don't get beaten, banged around. But I use a bar of Johnson's baby soap, and after I get done with the Kolinsky brushes, I clean the brush out. Then I put more soap in it, and then I shape it to the tip and let it dry. And I do have a friend like this that goes so far as he actually puts conditioner in his brushes once a week, like actual hair conditioner. I will not go that far. So, alright. So here we go. Alright. Just want to make sure that I get those on there. So I'm a dice addict. I love dice. What's everybody's favorite set of dice right now? And I listen to music too, but I don't know if I can listen to music here. And look, I touched something and it messed it up. Plus, y'all probably wouldn't like my music. So this is getting on my hands. Let's see if I can put this on a trash right here. No. Not gonna work. Oh well. So now I don't want to get rid of. Ooh, that's a nice purple. I don't want to cover the white that I just put on, so I'm edging each thing. Hyperborea dice, are they plastic or metal? I haven't seen those yet. Now, you're going to notice that, okay, so we've got the skeleton here. So the skull's sticking out, and I'm going to go around him in purple. Oh crap. Put white on there again. So let's do this. I'm going to go around each of these. Messed up. Oh no, the world's ending. I have the lapis set from Norse Foundry. It is a beautiful set of dice. I might be able to get you all a coupon code. Let's see here, Samantha. So you're wanting to, are you talking about taking and painting it black first and then going red over it, or over that dragon stomach, or doing red then a lighter red? I wouldn't use red for the stomach. Literally, I would use a orange color for the stomach, because something I've learned is that when you mix a lighter color, like you can get lighter reds, it's fine, but orange, in my opinion, highlights better. And this is very uncomfortable trying to get this into you guys, but I'll get used to it. Let's see here. I would use orange and a red wash over it. It's hard. Red is, there's a few colors that are horrible. Red, white, sometimes. Okay. So like red, yellow, white, green, they're horrible colors because they're translucent. And part of that is just because the things that make opaque paints opaque is that they add white to it. You can't add white to red because it will literally turn it pink. So you have to learn how to build up on that. And the way I do it is that you can do, if you're really wanting to do a black underneath it, there is a company that makes a red that is fairly opaque, and it is called a one coat. It's by Watercolors. Let me show it to you. It's this here. It's going to take you probably about 3 weeks to get it because you have to order it from Greece. It's a good color. It's still not that opaque. Citadel base colors are fairly opaque as well. But what I would do is I'd paint the dragon brown, a flesh tone, and then paint it your base colors if you want to paint it fast. Your base colors, which I would do the top part red, bottom part orange, and then do the red wash on the belly. Personally, that's how I do it. And I'm going to paint that dragon over there red as well. So when I get around to it in another stream, I will talk about that, and we'll look at it together as well. And if you want to message me outside of that, I'm on Facebook and all that stuff, I can give you tips as well. But I prefer doing it here so everybody can see them. But yeah, I'm super helpful. That's what people tell me all the time. Alright. And am I boring everybody yet? So I used to do a lot of commissions back in the day, and that's how I got to learn to paint a little bit faster by doing commission work, because if you take too long on a miniature, and this isn't going to be perfect because of the fact that I'm holding this in uncomfortable positions, but when you start taking commissions, though, you learn to batch paint, and I'm purple. But I'm teaching my middle child, he's 10, how to paint right now, and we're batch painting together. So I'll put like one coat down, and he'll follow it up with the next coat. Like I'll do like, we're painting some lizardmen, so I'll paint the body, the chest plate a light green or flesh colored, and then he'll come back and do the rest of the body in the green, and then I'll go in and do the browns while the other stuff's doing it. So we're trying to get through about 12 of them all at once. And when I'm painting with him, like when I paint with myself, I'm all about like, it's got to be perfect, and I can't stand that about myself sometimes. But painting with him is just fun, and I really don't care what they look like, because I'm painting with him and spending time with him. So, and I think it's more important to pass the hobby down than to try to be perfectionist and teaching them at the same time. So this is a kind of a dying hobby, and the reason I'm saying that is because of a lot of miniatures now are coming pre-painted, especially D&D miniatures. You can get them pre-painted now. Also, the contrast paints, I think, kind of ruin it a little bit for regular painting. And if you see me make a mistake, I'm going to go back and clean it up. I'm testing this white in a way because I want to see how opaque it is when I go back in here. Let me see. I can't see my own window. Okay. But so the contrast paints, if you need them, that's fine. I don't want to ruin them for you. Especially, I believe they're great for, especially with people with issues, control issues. And if you need to paint stuff like capes and things like that, they're great as well. But you can actually make contrast paint, and we've actually been using that process of contrast paints for a long time. And it's actually called glazing. And you use glaze medium. You take 50-50 glaze medium with water, distilled water, and then you would mix your paint in there with it till you get it to the right consistency. And then what you want to do is a zenithal highlight, where you first spray paint everything black, then you come in directly in front of the miniature at a flat angle and hit everything with a gray, then hit it top with white. And so that pretty much gets all your shading done. If you're using a lot of contrast paints, that works great. But if you're using glazes, that gets a lot of your shading done. But I'm not trying to take away from that. I've been doing this now for over 20 years. I started painting when I was 16, and I was that kid that worked to buy miniatures and paint and magic cards. And so I went to my day job, I worked at a fast food restaurant, and as soon as I got my paycheck, I would go straight to the comic shop. I would write my paycheck over to the owner, and he would say, "Okay, here, you got store credit now," and I would walk out of there, and he'd give me what's left of my paycheck, so I didn't ever go to the bank. But yeah, kids don't do that anymore, I don't think. Now you'll notice that I keep cleaning my brush out, but going back into the same color, and that's because you don't want your paint to dry on your brush, and so you keep wetting your brush. And you'll see here I've got some issues with supports. I accidentally turned supports on this, so and I didn't really have time to reprint it. This print job took me 6 hours, and I'm trying to experiment. I've got some new clear resin, and what I want to do is I'm going to print this hollow. So it's got this opening here, so you can put it over a miniature. It does fit over a miniature. So, but I've got some clear resin that I'm going to print the entirety of this hollow, and then I'm going to drill a hole in one side and get out any excess resin that I can. Then I'm going to fill this up with a liquid like mineral oil. I don't know exactly what, or something that will take a color and put a very light green color and maybe a sparkle to it, and so it swirls when you shake it. And then I'm going to put that over when I do another one. I print a lot of miniatures over and over again to see what I can do with them. And so I think that's going to be one of the ones. Yeah, I like purple. So this is weird, and my son's starting to learn this about me. I like all colors. So he's 10. He's like, yeah, my favorite color's blue. I'm like, well, currently right now my favorite color's pink and purple. He's like, you like purple? I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's a royal color, man. So is pink. And I had to go and explain all that to him, and like, pink didn't really have that name until like 100 years ago. Okay, so I went around a lot of this, and what I'm going to do now is, first I'll show it here. And the eyeball monster is getting kind of dry. So I went around a lot of this, and I'm going to clean up the dots that I did, and then I'm going to fill in everything else. So let me clean those dots up real quick. Oh man, it's already 8:47. I hope to get these done. So let's go back in and clean up any messes that I made here. So I watch a lot of painters online, and like I actually, going back to the commission stuff, I was a commission painter for Next Level Painting. It's the guy Kenny Boucher for a while there, and you know, getting tips from him and stuff, and he'd throw us work and we'd all bid on it, and it was through him, things like that. So, and you charge basically based on your how much work you're doing and your level. And I was one of the cheaper painters. I messed that up already because I didn't feel like I had confidence issues. I felt like I was a horrible painter, so I'd undercharge people, and my wife would get so mad. But I was in the living room painting at the kitchen table before I had this table. Okay, let's see, we'll clean all that up. Alright, now I'm going to use this big fat brush again. Sorry about hitting that again. So we're going to come back in with purple. And this is when you're going to be like, oh no, he's just slopping it everywhere. Okay. So let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. I do have a fatter brush somewhere. I just can't find it right now. And sometimes these bigger areas like this, if I'm going to paint this first, I'll end up using my airbrush. But I don't like using the airbrush this late at night because it's too loud. Well, the compressor is. Now, I'm going to go and tell you something that a lot of people don't want me to tell you. If you can only get the craft paint and that's in your budget, and these other paints are not in your budget, that is perfectly acceptable. The only reason why I use these paints is because I can shoot them through an airbrush, and I got into airbrushing when I did commission painting because it made the job a lot easier and quicker. But if you can only afford craft paint, there is nothing wrong with that. The only downside to to painting with craft paint is you can't shoot it through an airbrush very well for miniatures. You can for larger things with larger diameter nozzles. Normally on Wednesday nights, I'm listening to Chuck's Trollord Chuck's game in his channel. I'm usually coding some of the stuff for the Fantasy Grounds upgrade. That's what I do in a daytime. I'm a day job. I'm a software developer. Yeah, and that's one of the things is that first coat there, baked sauce, is done with the airbrush, because normally, but I really want to teach people how to do it with brushes too as well. And again, with 3D printed items, it's not going to matter, because you can still see, even though this is resin. You can't see it here, but you might. Hold on, let me get that to quit moving. You can still see the lines in this. I am painting the Cube of Snot from Fat Dragon Games. And instead of green, we're going with purple. I love using gelatinous cubes and puddings in my games. Especially, I love using puddings in a trap. Trying to switch all my games over to Castles and Crusades. I do play a little bit of Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is fun. It's zany, but I want to cut loose a little bit. Let's see here. I'm really liking these Reaper paints. They don't have to be thinned down as much as a Citadel paint does. And they got good coverage so far. Yes, Ultra Magnus. Yes, the first paint I ever used was from my days of painting model cars. And I remembered going in with my Orc army in 40K, and they were all shiny, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, what? And the brush that I used was the brush from the Tester's Paint, which is that flat brush, and this was back in 92, 93. So everybody's like, nope, 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 here's what you need. And so for this print job, I used a longer orange tin. I got this one at the time it came out because it was a cheap printer, and I wanted a resin printer for something else, mainly to print dice. So, and it's no good for dice, but it's great for miniatures, I'll tell you that. The supports, though, I need to learn supports better. That's another issue I'm having with it. The other printers I have, so I'm a bit on the cheap side when it comes to 3D printers. I don't want to pay more than $250 for a 3D printer. So, and working in IT, knowing electronics like I do, I'm pretty safe with that stuff. I know what to do to keep myself safe, my house safe, my family safe. So, yeah, I use ANET printers on the other stuff. And I know that the ANET A8, which was my second printer I ever owned, was a fire hazard. But the version I had was the first gen. It was before they got really cheap on the printer. And it actually, I think it was the clones that were catching on fire. It's strange that a ANET is a clone of a Prusa i3, an ANET A8, but then these cheaper companies started cloning the ANET because it got so popular. But I have an ANET A8, which I've had for over 5 years now. An ANET E16, which is a Creality CR10S clone. And the eyeball monster was printed on a ANET ET4, which is my newest one that I'm trying to get tuned in properly. So, Yes, I have a lot of printers, but yeah, over the years they have paid for themselves. Oh my gosh, this is taking forever. But I'm enjoying having you all here asking questions. I just want to make sure everything's in a good shot for you guys. I don't want it to be blurry. And I've just got to get used to holding my brush a certain way. And again, this is just quick painting here. I just want to see how long it would take me to get these two painted. Hopefully we'll finish this and then switch back over to the eyeball monster. And so here's the thing. You're going to make mistakes when painting. That's just what happens, okay? You're going to get paint like there, somewhere you don't want it. And there's a reason why these are still white, and I'll show you why here in a few minutes. But so it's fine. This paint's thin, so it's not going to be too thick when you have to paint over something. Trust me, I've done it a million times before. Now I'm getting sloppy now. I think it's because I'm trying to rush myself a little bit. Let's not. I will say though, that this does use a little bit of paint. Now these Reaper paints, the set was pretty good. It's pretty cheap price. Oh, you got the Elgu Mars for $75? That's a pretty good price. Did somebody not want it? But so these paints, if you're buying individual paints, are about $3.50 a bottle. This is what I'm going to go back to and talking about like what you can afford. Most of my paints were bought for commissions, and I incorporated the cost of those paints in my commission work. So if I knew I was going to need a certain color, I would add that into the price. So and if you ever look at my collection of paints, you'll notice I have a lot of fiery orange from Vallejo Game Colors, because one of the people that has me paint stuff for them is obsessed with the Miami Dolphins. Oh my gosh. And that fire orange is a match for their orange. Wait, it's either that or the Florida Gators. Anyway, I can't remember which team it is. So I always have to color code it to that color for him. He's had me paint Blood Bowl teams in that color. He's had me paint Tau armies in that color scheme. And it gets old after a while. So, alright, we almost got the purple on, and then we'll let this dry for a minute before we start doing cleanup. And we'll switch back over to the eyeball monster. Doop doop doo, doop 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 doop. Dun 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 dun. Bum bum bum. Yeah, that happens too. A lot of times people get mad at the printers because they can't figure it out. They don't want to take the time to figure it out, and it's not like like people on YouTube, they'll print something and show you how awesome it prints, but they won't show you the fact that they printed that item about 15 times to get that machine tuned in, and or to get their settings tuned in properly so it would show up fine in YouTube. Sometimes that the 3D printer guys on YouTube as well will take and get files already preset up by the manufacturers of the printers. Okay, let's see here. Alright. Let's see here. There's a corner right there. And that's a problem too. Alright. And yeah, this, I will tell you, normally I used to use an old jar for a paint pot. Oh my gosh. I switched over to this paint pot, and I'm not trying to, I don't get paid by this. This is Citadel. This is their paint pot. It's got ridges in the bottom of it. It is a game changer, guys. And let's see here. Okay. So, I like making my eyeball monsters nasty looking. We may not be able to paint the whole thing correctly tonight, but we will get to it. I want to focus around the eyes, the eye and the mouth. So I am going to use tanned flesh, okay, around the eye. I've already got a little bit of white out, and I need to put more water in my wet palette. So I'm gonna. So I can't. Who was it? Scott. I believe it was you. Was asking about eyeballs. So I'm gonna do this. This is how you paint a regular eyeball, but I'm gonna do it in large so you can see how to paint it. Okay. So first of all, I'm gonna go ahead and go with my flesh tone right around the eye. Okay. So let's just paint that flesh tone in there. Right. Get it in the cracks. It's all nasty. And I like painting beholders different color, eyeball monsters different colors, because to me they're created when you dream of them. I believe is what the lore is behind them. I can't remember off the top of my head. So so I think that they can be any color. Yeah, so the ridges, so here's the thing about, and I'll show you with this brush. I never, on my good brushes, never paint like this. Never push into your miniature, okay? Some people do that because they're like, get in there. Don't do that. It's bad for the brush. It will not let your brush last long at all. So the way you want to do it is you always drag your brush this way. You drag it away, and that's how you put your paint in. Now, as far as the ridges go, it doesn't really have that big of an effect on the brush if you're always dragging it, because it's the same way I paint with it. Or you can paint it like with the ridges, because the lines are going this way. You can paint it that way, but if you drag it this way, a little bit more paint gets actually deposited into the ridges, which means that it takes a little bit more. Sorry guys, I'm going to have to fix this thing from where I'm bumping into it. But I'm just going to paint around here a little bit. I'm going to let it dry real quick. I'm going to show you something that my kids think is stupid, but I think is awesome. So let me get the mouth. So yeah, let's get that back in there. And so let me tell you, especially if you're new to 3D printing, I prefer Fat Dragon stuff, especially for new printers, new people that are into printing. And it's one, you can get Fat Dragon stuff really super cheap, okay? And also, they put their stuff for sale a lot on Humble Bundle. So when you're buying it, it's going for a good cause. And I know this says I am sponsored today by Fat Dragon, but what that just means is they let me stick their picture on there, and I did not get anything from them for this paint day. I paid for these models myself. So I'm friends, well, I wouldn't say friends, I know them. I would consider myself friendly with Tom Tullis and them. They're really good guys over there. And so this is what we're painting right there, so y'all get a chance to look at it. But one day maybe I'll be really good friends with them, like I am the Trolls. I really do enjoy Steven and them, and Tim and Davis and Chuck. Chuck's local to me. He's my best friend. So we go to GaryCon together. Okay, so we're just gonna leave this here. I'm gonna put. Let me get a little bit of paint in between teeth, right there. So the thing about 3D printing miniatures, though, yeah, I got that terrain pack as well. So the thing about this, though, you can't use a lot of washes when you're painting 3D printed miniatures. And the reason being is it's all going to go into the recesses here, into the lines of the layers. So you actually have to paint the old school way with this. And that's the downfall of 3D printing. But if you learn how to paint the old school way of not using washes, in the long run, it will do better. So let's put this there. So I was talking about brush maintenance. Where did that brush go? Ooh, okay. So this brush here, I'm getting ready to pull out, is a Reaper detail brush. It is a Kolinsky sable. It was made in Ireland. Okay. Let me fix the tip, put some water on it. I bought this brush. Let's see here. I was married in 2004. I bought this brush in 2002. And there's the tip on it. This is my finest detail. Well, I do have an Insanity brush from Army Painter, which is about the same. But I've had this brush now since 2002, so 18 years. And that's taking care of your brushes right there. And what I did was I took a bar of Johnson's baby soap and I just crushed it up and stuck it in a mason jar. And I used that. I threw it in a microwave and it melted a little bit, so I formed it in. Crap. Or you can use brush soap. You get brush soap. And this is nasty, but I'm going to show it to you. This is what I use right here, and this is how I use it. Is I take my brush, wet it, slather me some soap on it, and what that does is help knock the paint loose. So, and then wash it out again, and then I do that one more time and I shake the brush. I only do that to Kolinsky sable brushes. I mean, I'll wash out a regular Rylon or whatever it's called, a rayon brush or whatever it's called. Like this is synthetic, and just to get the paint out of it. And this is a wash brush too, so this has dried wash up on it. But that's just to really knock it out. And there's good thing about the brushes. Okay, I'll give you a little brush science. So this synthetics do not absorb water into the makeup of the brush. Each strand is hydrophobic, so it'll hold water up in here, but it won't absorb water into the plastic. Okay, so that's why these brushes, synthetic brushes, are good for washes. They hold the liquid in there. Now the natural brushes are better for paint because they pull the water out of the paint and they allow it to you to keep your paint on the tip and your pigment on the tip without it flowing into there. Now you'll notice that this ferrule is a lot cleaner. The ferrule is this part right here. It's a lot cleaner than the other one because I do not take paint. Of course, the banger brushes where I just slather the paint on is a little bit different, but on my good brushes, I do not let paint get halfway up through here to the best of my ability, because once it gets up in here, that's when your brushes start splitting hairs like this, and so that's a problem. Oh, crap. Okay, I'm officially going to work on that stinking thing. So, okay, alright, now we've got our eyeball here. Let's put a little bit of white paint on it. Now, I'm not going to do a full strip over it, but I'll make it a little messy so I can go back and clean it up to show you what I mean. Okay. So normally over a miniature, the eyes are a lot smaller than this, okay? And I'm going to do this one in color because I'm going to give it a colored eye. So there we go. There's the white. Alright. Now I'm going to let that dry for a second. Now, I think this guy needs a red eye. So what red are we going to use? We'll use this one. It's my glasses that's catching this thing. Sorry, I know people don't shaking and makes them sick. So what you normally do for an eye on a smaller miniature is imagine this color is black, okay? And it's not red, but I only want this red because this is going to be the iris. So you don't hit the camera 5 billion times. you make a strip down through here, and that paint wasn't dry enough. Okay. But I'll come back in and go back over it and clean up my eye. But I'm just teaching you the basics of doing an eye. So you've got a strip like this. And usually it's all the way down like this. Like that. Okay. And so what you would do at this point, you would let that dry. Let's let that dry. And you come back in with your flesh and edge along here, okay, and edge along there, all right, and then that's it. Throw a wash over it, and it gets down in the recesses and it shades it pretty good. But I am going to do it a little bit differently, considering this is a big old iris. Okay, all right. And I know I'm not perfect with this right at the moment. I will show you the WizKids one I did here the other day. Because I love beholders. I mean, eyeball launchers. So let's see here. This is the WizKids one I did. I just can't find the lens for it. There's a lens that goes over that makes it look wet. I've lost it somewhere. So, and I've still got to do the base on this, and I've got to clear coat it all and clean up the teeth a little bit. Usually for my table, I don't go into detail like I did for commissions while that eye dries, because I got some cleanup to do on it. Let's go back to our gelatinous cube. Our cubist knot. So what I want to do now is take some skeleton bone, which is this one here, which is just an off-white, dirty white. I've used this color, well, skeleton bone colors before. It's good for parchments. Putting them over if you got something that's holding a scroll, per se. Thought about coming on here and be like, yo dog, this isn't Kenny Boucher and this isn't next level painting, this is the first level painting, but I didn't do it. Kenny's a good dude. If you get a chance, if you like watching stuff like 40K miniatures get painted, he's really good to watch. Now, I'm not going to take this all the way to the edge for the skeletons, and I'm only really hitting the highlights, and there's a reason for this, and you're going to see here in a minute once I get all this done. But we're going to make sure that we have a good color, and you know, normally something like this you'd come in and shade it with a brown or sepia. And I'll show you what this color looks like with sepia, and this is what I'm working on for myself. Is right there. This is a skull, and this is me just playing around. This is a bones miniature, and the cool thing about this is this paint had no primer underneath it, so that's sepia on top of it. So okay, let's get this done, and tell me if I'm getting this stuff out of frame, and I'll enjoy feedback. Just don't be mean and nasty about it. There's too many mean people in the world. We gotta be nice with each other. The only time you're mean to somebody is if you're killing their monster in their dungeon. Okay, we're gonna make that look like a bone. So we're painting these in right now. I don't know how those other guys do it. I know that they use the SLRs that they can zoom in with. Actually, Bake, that was just, that was this skull, skeleton bone, with the sepia wash on it. That was it. That's all that was. Okay. Make sure I get all these right. I grabbed purple again. Okay, another skull. Well, what I would do for you, this is what how detailed is that army? Is it for like Kings of War or something? And there's going to be places like right here that we're going to have to go back over with the purple, which is fine. I just want to get the skeleton bone on. Okay, Sigmar, okay. Are they really detailed? What I would do, me personally, is I'd go to get the army painter and get some skeleton bone paint that in a rattle can. And that is also a primer. And I would rattle can the entire army. Then I would come back and do all their weaponry. I don't know what all weapons they have. And so therefore the army's painted, and then you just fill in the weapons. And then you can do a wash and then lacquer coat it, or you can then do, the army painter makes this material called, they call it the dip, and it's a polyurethane with their strong tone mixed in it, and you can just dip it in, shake it off, and it clear coats it, but it's a shiny clear coat, so you still have to come back over it with a dull coat, but it protects it, and it fills in the cracks with their strong tone, so it gives it that shadowing. The army painter, I teach that method. That's what I teach at GaryCon, is the army painter method. And the whole premise behind it is you take your model and not hit the camera. You block it all in, okay? Like, this is not a good example. Hold on. Okay, let's do this. No, this rust monster. Let me show you this guy. I was playing around. This is a resin print as well. This is from Fight Dragon. I believe it is. I think it is. Anyway, so I think it came in the Fight Dragon free files, maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, so you block the colors in. Like on this one, I had just a green, another green. I mixed it up with a different shade of green on the bottom. On the top, I used a Army Painter's black iron, and then I had a rust paint that it's an effects paint that I dry brushed everything with. And this coloring, like this, all this shading here, is actually a dip. So I made my own dip on this one. This isn't the Army Painter dip, but their dip is really good. But you just dip it in, shake it off, set it and let it dry for 24 hours. But this is, I use polyacrylic, which is from the same people, Minwax, and it's sort of, it smells funky, but it's clear, it's satin colored, and I mix together black ink, brown ink, and a dab of green to get these colors on that. I know it's not perfect, but it gets it to the table, and this was just me playing around and screwing around. So now let's go back in here on this guy, and I'm going to look at the dots that I messed up on, and we're going to come back in like this. We're going to fix them, let them dry a minute, then we're going to go back to the beholder. Again, it's all about getting it to the table. Like, I'm that guy that if you're playing with me in person, like, whatever monsters I'm going to throw at you, because I usually DM that week, I'll go out and buy them, and I will paint them. So, that week. So, when we are playing, boom, there they are, right at the table. That's why. Or sometimes I just don't paint them. Just depends. if I got the time. And this is one of those hobbies that, I mean, you know the basics of it, but you have to practice. And if you get out of practice, then you've got to go back and get back into it. I've taken a break and I've just gotten back into it. It's been probably about 3 months since I actually picked the brush up. And you'll see as if you follow along, like I'll start getting tighter again on my paint and things will look a little bit better. So as we go along, see that trolls that keeps popping up. I keep thinking somebody's asking a question and I'll get all excited, but no, y'all are quiet. I guess it's too late and y'all are sleepy. Bunch of babies. Just kidding. Okay, so this is as good as I'm going to get this. Let me clear it the purple. And this isn't done though. So I got some cool tricks to show you guys. First thing I'm going to do is let these spots that I just did dry. Alright. Now, let's go back to Mr. Eyeball. Okay, I need some black. It's like, Yellow. White. More white. And when you paint, if you're just doing one small miniature, you only need one drop of paint at a time, guys. So let's see here. Let me, actually, that's not what I want to start out with. Okay. I'll come in here. I'm going to put some paint right in the bottom of this. Okay. Mix together some yellow and red. Make it orange. Okay. We're adding some streaks to it this way. I know this looks horrible, but it'll clean up. That's the key, is cleaning up, man. Add a little bit more orange to the, or yellow to the orange. Light it up just a little bit more. Make the streaks a little thinner, like this. And I know this looks terrible at the moment. We'll get there. Okay. So, let's see if we get another streak. Nah, it's not yellow enough. I will tell you this, it's easier to go darker than it is to go lighter. So, okay, let's see if I get this in the picture here. So we're going to do some streaks this way. And we're bringing it in like this. Okay. Now, we got some solid black. Just a little bit. We don't need a lot for this. So we'll come in right here. I'm going to put a pupil. Painting big things for me, it seems to be harder than painting smaller things. I will say that. There we go. Now, so we've got that. Got that. Is anybody still there? Did I bore y'all to death? I'm not good at free-handed sometimes. Especially on days I had too much coffee. Oh! Yay, people are still here. Well, don't be quiet. We've only got 35 more minutes. Then I'll have to go back to the real world where I'm not painting miniatures and I'm downstairs watching TV with my wife, who I love. Okay, so that's what we got so far. I know it's not perfect. You should start painting. And don't use no affiliate links, because I ain't got none. Okay, so next thing about painting, we've got to paint this mouth. So I'm not going to start the teeth first. I've got to go in and get what I can of the tongue and the inside of the mouth. So I'm not going to worry about the area of the mouth. I'm going to worry mostly about the tongue. Then I'm going to follow up on the teeth. So the tongue is going to be little, I don't know if you can see that color there. It's a light pinkish orange, a little bit. That's what I'm gonna start with, and I might have more red. Okay, all right. When I finish this, I'll post pictures of it as well for you guys, because I know we won't be able to finish it tonight because I'm doing 2 miniatures. Next time I'll only do 1, but I really wanted to show y'all different things. Okay, so we've got the tongue a little bit. I think we can go a little bit darker. Now, there is complementary colors that work really well together. Color wheels are very important, so if you ever want to really get into painting, get a color wheel. Now, the cool thing about color wheels is the colors directly opposite of the color wheel work very well, as far as if you want to paint red, if you put down a light green first, you can paint that first and then paint the red on top of it and it will go better, and vice versa. I just usually use a brown or a gray though. I explored a lot of different options when trying to paint those orange and green teams and miniatures to try to make it faster for me when I was doing all that. Actually, I needed to do, hold on guys. You always want to go furthest part away from you first and then do the stuff up close. So let me go in between this. I'm gonna give him some red gums. He's been eating people's souls and dreams and just getting them. So we'll get in here, and again, this is a little messy. Of course, it's the nature of the beast with 3D prints. They are a little messy sometimes. So, but we're getting there on the teeth, and I'm gonna go back in and then paint the teeth, because you want the bottom base of the tooth red, and the reason being it kind of blends in, but it looks like he's got decay in his teeth, and it just looks disgusting, which is what you want. And again, I started painting a long time ago with Citadel paints, and that was back in the day when you would take a bone or a tooth and the base of it would be red, and you would just use a bone color on top of it. Actually, a lot of times it was white because they didn't have a lot of bone color available, so that would just make what you needed there. And boom, 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 boom. All right. Okay. All right. So we've got a little bit of red in there. Then I'm gonna come back in with my bone, and I'm gonna get the fronts of these teeth right there. Again, painting 3D printed stuff can be tricky. But it's still fun, because you literally created this thing from beginning to end. So like you took an idea that somebody else had and was able to make something physical out of it. And it's just cool. Okay. Okay, now these big tuskers right there. So you can see where I had some issues with the print by the way they take the paint. So I need to put a little bit more skeleton bone here. Alright. It's kind of hot in my little office here. This is where I sit at most of the day when during the Corona crud. It's horrible, but they have me working from home right now, which is good, but I can do that, which is a blessing. A lot of people can't do that right now, but I miss people. I miss being in the office. I'm that guy that likes to get a cup of coffee and talk to people while I drink it. But also the coffee pot's in my office, so it's not that big a deal for me just to sit there while other people come and get their coffee. So I'm going to take a little bit of white now, and I'm going to come in and do the tips of these real quick. It's kind of a highlight. And down here at the bottom, you don't want it on there too much. Okay. So we're going to let this dry. Now we're going to go back to the pile of snot. Okay. So now I'm going to use this wonderful nasty cap. Let me find what I'm looking for. This, my friends, is glazed medium. So I'm just going to take a couple drops of this. Right there. So, and you gotta realize that this thing is nasty. It's like the nastiest thing ever. It picks up everything on the floor. And so the water I'm going to mix with this is my paint water. And this is going to be horrible because I'm going to spill way too much in here. Come on, just a drop. Oh, there we go. Alright, just enough. You're like, oh gosh, that's nasty. So what we do, mix it up, turns this wonderful white, milky gray, gets chunks of that nastiness in there, which is fine. Then take our wonderful purple. Actually, yeah, we'll do this first. We're going to put a couple drops of this in here. Look at that pigment. Now, I will tell you, this paint is highly pigmented. Alright, we're going to take this, we're going to mix it up like that. Nasty. Okay. And then I want to take one drop of black. Hopefully this is not too much. And stop bumping the thing. Come on. You know that kid in middle school in the 90s that was obsessed with the colors purple and black? Let's see here. That's good. That's nice and dark. Okay. Now, the glaze. This is a glaze. This is pretty much the same thing as contrast paints. It'll behave just a little bit differently because they've got a different special mix on their mediums. But you just put that in there and we're going to let it set on each side a little bit. Let it thicken up and dry as we wait, and it'll go in the recesses some, and we'll still wash it a little bit. And the reason why on the skeleton, why I did not use a wash like a brown wash, is because this thing's been inside this gelatinous cube, so it's got purple goop on it, and it's just gonna look a little bit awesome. Okay, so we're gonna do this, and the thing is, this stuff dry shiny, which is awesome because I don't know any dull looking piles of snot unless they're dried up piles of snot, and that's usually after they're dead. Oh, there we go. Back in the frame, Daniel. Help him, Lord. Now, who has a thicker country accent, me or Stephen Chenault? I'm from the hills of East Tennessee. Alright, we're going to let this dry for a minute, and we're going to go back. No, they don't make a matte glaze medium to the best of my knowledge, but it is okay because you can hit it with some matte varnish or dull coat. That's one thing I learned. Tester's dull coat was the greatest thing back in the day. Okay, now we're going to go back to our eyeball monster. Look, I got all this water over here, so all my paint's mixed up now. So I might have to start all over again a little bit. So let's see here. I need some skin. Alright, we're going to put a drop there. And I'm going to get another drop of this red. I really like these. They're nice colors. They really pigmented. I do want to shoot them to the airbrush though and see how they do. Okay. I'm going to use Mr. Fatty over here. This guy. The fatter the brush, the better it handles paint for 3D prints, I've always found. So now what we're going to do here is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start edging around the eye. Now it might take a couple passes to cover up that white, which is fine. And I'm going to clean up that white too because you can still see some through it. I'm probably going to do a wash just over the eye just to dull it down some. So you come in here, and that is out of focus, but this is the only way I can do it. Okay. Am I doing a good job, guys? Tell me the truth. Are you learning anything? If you have any other questions about 3D printing or guns, yes, I said guns. I like guns. I really not. You don't have to ask about guns too much. Heaps. Okay, so in SQL Server, a heap. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to talk about heaps. Yes, I do that all day long at work. Okay, so see how I've cleaned that up a little bit around there? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that red that I put down and mix it with some of that flesh. And I've got this really nice looking pink. And then I'm going to come in here on the inside of the lip area. And I'm going to put it right here on the lips. There's going to be some pink lips, going to give her some smushes and give kisses. Sorry, we just got a puppy before the crackdown, and I mean the COVID outbreak, and so I've been in puppy talk. Give that puppy some smushes and kisses. She's a Boston Terrier rescue. Not really a rescue. Some friends of ours got her, and then they didn't realize that they were allergic to dogs. So I was like, sure, I'll take her. Okay. So see, we got a little bit of reddish pink around there. It still doesn't look that great. So we're going to come back in with our brush. We're going to clean it up. A lot of the painting is cleaning up stuff too. So we're going to clean this up here where we've got it up here a little bit too high. There. Back down here some. I'm going to show it some off on the lips because it's just on the bottom. There, we got that some. Okay. Now, talking about this is very rudimentary right now, and what I would normally do if this was a non-3D printed item, I would wash it with a flesh tone, and you could try that, but it's gonna it might not. Let's just do it, and I'm gonna paint the whole thing down the road and get some pictures up. So let's see here. Got some Reichland flesh shade here. Okay. I hope this glaze mixes. Take some. So we're going to take some of this flesh shade and see what. First, I'm going to put it around the eye. So I want this to settle in around the eye, right here, and this may work. So we might not have to worry about it too much. Oh yeah. And I will tell you this. if anybody ever tells you that Dungeons and Dragons and RPGs and Castles and Crusades are not a miniature game, then they are completely wrong. See, now I've darkened that eye pretty well, okay? So, but I've got that in the recesses where I wanted it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my brush some, and I'm going to come back in over the white, and I'm going to remove some of that shade, and it's just going to flow down, okay? RPGs are a miniature game, unless it's a storytelling game. And it started out with miniatures. It was a war game, and then it went to where it did. You know, we got away from big, huge combat to one-on-one combat. I mean, that's how it started. And so I do believe that miniatures are a big part of RPGs. Now, I'm not discrediting theater of the mind, but I just love miniatures. So we're going to put this on here. Whoa. We're going to let this dry a little bit. I'm going to lay it flat because I don't want it to flow down. I want it, or down the miniature. But let's get rid of the mouth too. And the cool thing about a shade or a wash is that it takes and tones down your paint a little bit. And I'll talk about that here in a second too. Somebody the other day asked me the difference between me bumping the camera and not bumping the camera. Let's see here. Let's put a drop. This is Agrax, so it's a shade. So you've got washes, you've got tones or shades, and you've also got inks. So I'm going to put some Agrax on the teeth here. Tone them down just a little bit. So that's what we got so far for the face. See how it's settling in? It's a 3D print. It looks a lot different now that I've got a wash on it. So, okay, so let's talk about that real quick. So, washes are meant to settle in the recesses of something when you're doing a wash over it. It will tint the model, the paint a little bit compared to not as much as a tone or a shade will. Okay, tones and shades really and truly just they darken it up. That's what they're designed to do. Then you have inks, and people like to get inks confused sometimes with washes, but inks are not washes because inks are opaque. You can actually use an ink as paint, and I've done that before. It's really good. So, and I've used washes as paints too, or shades, by painting the miniature completely white and then just going in at it with a brush and the colors that it needs to be with the wash, and it builds up over time, but it's like you get your highlighting done. So, alright, so I don't think this is going to dry as quickly as I wanted it to. I just don't want it to drip right here. So, see what we're doing is we've got this now pulled up down here, and this is going to actually dry darker than the purple around it because I mixed black in it, but it looks milky right now because of the medium. The medium is milky, but it dries clear. Let me see if I can pour some of this off. I put a little bit too much on there. So I want to try to get the sides in. So use some of my 1990s black and purple glaze here. Sorry. Just remember all those girls in middle school. Black and purple's my favorite colors. With my kid and play hair. Just kidding. I had a bowl cut. Get that on there. It's all nice and shiny and nasty looking. And you might want to go over it with a dark color, like a brown. Uh-oh, it's bedtime according to my phone. It says go to bed because you got to get up in the morning and go to work where you don't get to paint all day long. which is fine. I like working. Enjoy my job. McDonald's. Make funny faces at the camera and people laugh. Okay. Ugh. I'm dripping. Okay. So, this isn't as purpley as I want, but it's getting there. So what we'll do is we'll come in here a little bit. Clean up that. We'll come in on your bubbles. These are supposed to be bubbles. They're going to stain down. It's going to take a couple of coats of this. But I want them to stain down to be a light purple, and I make them in there with a little bit of paint and mix it together and make a light purple. Sorry guys, you cannot see what I'm doing, but I'm getting rid of some of the staining because you want it to be smooth. So this is what we've got so far, and this is going to dry eventually. So let's put this up for now. Alright, so I'll get the rest of these done and I'll post pictures in the Troll Lords group and things, but let's talk a minute. We'll talk a little bit about 3D printing a little bit longer. So thing I would recommend dealing with 3D printing is that always take safety precautions. I work around a lot of resin with 3D printers. I also make dice. I make my own dice as well. I'm currently working on reproducing the original Dungeons and Dragons dice from the box sets. This is mine. I made this. So I've got the full set, and the thing with resin printers, you need to follow directions. If you've got the ability to put it in a garage or use a fume to get your fumes out, do that. Make sure you use the top enclosure on it so it keeps all the vapors as compact as possible. When you're working around that stuff, wear a respirator. It's very important. When you're working around your airbrush and rattle cans, use a respirator. I know that they are so hard to get right now. I was lucky to have bought some before all this happened, so I still have some down in my crafting area where I paint that stuff at and do the resins. But you need to make sure that you've got everything for your safety. Now, when it comes to FDM printers, you're dealing with a lot of heat and a lot of plastic, and you can have issues with leaks. Like this, I will tell you that this ANET ET4 that I'm printing with right now has a leak, so I've got to rebuild the hot end on it, which means hot drippy plastic is going to be dripping, and so if you're having to get something out from under it, you can possibly get plastic dripped on you. I've burnt my hand a lot with the hot end, and you do get fumes from certain types of plastics that, like ABS. When you print with ABS, it stinks to high heaven. You don't want that around your family. Now, as far as my printers, my FDM printers, I keep a smoke detector directly above them. Okay, if one of them catches fire, which is a possibility with any 3D printer, I don't care how expensive it is or how good it is, it can catch fire, period. That alarm goes off. I keep my FDM printers in the basement. I do have a fire extinguisher there. I try not to do long prints when I'm not home anymore, and I've gotten a little bit safer with that. When I first started, I didn't really care, but you do keep a fire extinguisher nearby. You got to get a kill switch for electricity, so you can kill the electricity before you hit the fire extinguisher, and you got to make sure you have the right type of fire extinguisher. I work in a chemical plant, and therefore we have to take fire safety classes all the time, so therefore I make sure we got everything covered. I'm actually also looking at getting for my printer. Question, nope, just new Patreon stuff. So I'm looking at the there's these canisters that you can get that normally go over above grills like at restaurants. They got a fuse to them, and what happens is when a fire hits the fuse, it lights the fuse off, causes an explosion, and dry powder comes down and puts the fire out. That's always a good thing to do as well with a printer. Is get something like that in case you can't get to it quick enough. It will set off. Those usually go about $50 a can, but I mean $50 a can versus getting your house burnt down, that seems like an investment almost if you're going to be in this hobby. But yeah, I mean, in painting, again, guys, paint with what you've got. Don't go out and buy like super expensive stuff if you can't afford it. Now, I will tell you, I do have expensive stuff when it comes to brushes, when it comes to paints, and that's only because I've been doing this for so long. I've collected this stuff over the years, and yes, I'm a brush slicker. That's what it's called when we get our brush to the point. That's how we do it. We clean it out, and then it makes it a perfect point. There you go. And we're actually got a Facebook group called the Brush Slickers. But yeah, the do with what you can. I'll tell you, James Wapple. If you look at him on YouTube, is one of my favorite painters to watch. He's an ex-veteran, or not ex-veteran. He's a veteran, and when he paints, he does use higher end paints. I will tell you that when you get into higher end paints, they are better. But if you can't afford them, then don't worry about it. Buy the craft paint. I've got a whole drawer over here full of nothing but craft paints, and I use them all the time. And I'll tell you, my favorite color right now is one of my craft paints, and it's this. It's an amethyst, metallic amethyst color, and I love it. And it's a craft paint, and I use it. I do. I think it's great. But the Wapple, he airbrushes, of course, but he also uses, for his brushes, he buys, Hobby Lobby makes it's called a number 8 round, and it's a big fat brush, and it holds the tip good enough. You buy a pack of, I think, 10 for $5. They'll last you a commission if you're doing commission painting, and by the time you're done, you have some big fat chunky brushes that you can use for base coating stuff, and you don't care about the tips of them. And I will figure out a way to keep this thing from shaking. You see, this is what I'm working with right here. So I don't know any other way how to put this over the miniature. I am getting another a light ring to go around this. But as far as like, I don't know any other way how to mount this. If you all have some ideas, let me know, please. Sorry, I'm looking at me over here, but you're over here. Let me fix this. And yeah, I do work in my closet. So, but if y'all have any questions, it's cool. Just shoot me a message. I'm on Facebook, Daniel Fisher. I'm in the Castles and Crusades group. Again, my group that goes to GaryCon that brings the board games is called Inroad Ministries. We just want people to play around the table, so we come out there and we just provide games and we wait on people. We get you drinks if you need drinks and things like that, or if you want to learn how to play a game, we tell you the rules. Teach people how to paint and do all this for free. I don't charge at all for any of this stuff. I don't believe in charging for it, but it's all about getting around the table, no matter if it's your friends, your family, just strangers. Right now this is an important time because we can't get around the table with a lot of people, and so we do what we can, like this, teaching people how to paint over this. And I can't wait till my next convention where I can actually teach people how to paint. Oh, this is dried out a little bit, so you can see where the shading has got in there some. It would look different if I resin printed this, and I'm planning on resin printing this as well because I really want to see what it looks like as a resin print and see if my printer can handle it. So I think it can, but I've just got to do a little bit more tweaking to it and stuff. So, but yeah, just remember that we're going to be cool to people here lately because everybody's going through a lot, and I just want to show y'all a good time painting, and hopefully they'll have me back on here. There won't be too many complaints. But my voice is kind of going right now because I've had a busy day and I've got 5 minutes left on my schedule. And if y'all ain't got any more questions, I'm gonna call it a night. So, and again, if you got some, we'll tell you this before I go. I wear reading glasses. Actually, these are progressives. These are standard reading glasses that you can get at the Dollar Tree for $1. Now, a lot of people have magnifying glasses, but if you get a pair of readers and put them over your glasses like this, it works better, and not one big thing. It's little things, and you've got decent depth perception. I'm just telling y'all these things. Us old people have these things. We know what to do with them. Anyway, but have a great night and take care, and God bless everybody. See you around.